Like, what even is going on with this plot? Like, what even? I'm sure a lot of you watching this are familiar with, if not fans of, My Little Pony: A New Generation. Some of you may actually have watched the webisodes, while some of you may have just watched the main series on Netflix and the movie. Spoilers may be ahead for those who haven't watched it, so please keep that in mind while watching this video. I'll be trying to keep my own personal bias out of this video as much as possible, but this is a video about my own personal thoughts, and you are all entitled to your own opinions about it too. Let me know if I got anything wrong in the comments. Getting into my own personal thoughts and experience with watching the show, I think it does well as a children's show. Many kids won't notice the errors with it, and if you're like 11, you may be able to convince yourself that everything they do doesn't feel staged. However, if you're old enough to notice when the writers are just making stuff up they think is cool, not bothering to see if it matches with the pre-existing world, it makes the experience of watching quite annoying. Now, the company behind My Little Pony: A New Generation is known for making shows as essentially emotionally invested toy commercials, which I would take as a reasonable explanation if they even made half of the stuff featured in the show into toys. Instead of doing what they did with Friendship is Magic, they barely marketed their toys at all, there are barely any in actual stores, and haven't made many. They haven't been the most appealing toys either, pretty much being made of budget cut after budget cut. The large ponies for hairstyling have massive bald spots in their manes, just as an example. They're not all visible when packaged, but it's a lot less fun to style your pony's manes when they look half bald if you don't style it the same way as it was packaged. From a world building perspective, they've messed it up in ways that will take many seasons to fix. They've changed the constants of that world to mesh with their new ideas, making it essentially a different universe but getting the appeal of having Twilight Sparkle mentioned. The rules of how magic works have been broken, without an explanation as to how, since the movie, and we still haven't gotten any closer to knowing. They're also trying to recreate the main six, and we all know it. They're not really hiding the fact they're gonna add Misty to the group later, and Sparky is supposed to be pretty much Generation 5 Spike. Typically, I would be the person who would say that you shouldn't equate new characters to old ones, but it's getting to be painfully obvious that they are trying to recreate them. The whole only having 5 in the movie was a fake out in that aspect. We start thinking, oh, maybe they'll do something different, and then they slowly revert back to the system that got them a ton of money because they have no interest in doing something different, only what makes them money. This makes me honestly mad as a writer. I don't mean to be insulting, as I can see the writers of My Little Pony: A New Generation have potential, but the show's writing feels less like its own show and more like a knockoff of My Little Pony G4 by the episode. I know a lot of people are feeling the same way as me too. The characters are well designed and the world setting is beautiful, but the mirroring of the main cast makes it feel like a small studio with a lot of money and really good software for 3D animation made a knockoff of Friendship is Magic for elementary schoolers. Writing-wise, they apparently forgot that if Equestria is now divided into many different countries of Earth Ponies, Pegasi, and Unicorns, the Earth Ponies and Unicorns wouldn't follow a Pegasus ruler and would have their own leaders. They're trying to mirror Friendship is Magic again, and they can only have one main royal family. It's no wonder the world building is so lackluster when they do stuff like this. The writers focus so much on the main cast that they left out key details of the world, and now they're canonically not there unless the writers fix the lack of them later on. I wouldn't put it past them to do this, and it may already be a plan, as it is a common thing in writing, but maybe we could at least have hinted at it and not just dropped it on us suddenly like the whole thing with the Earth Pony magic. Nearly everything that happens just happens suddenly. The majority of every episode is them having some issue with each other, or, oh no, the unicorns did something again, which honestly the unicorn shade is, let's say suspiciously directed. I honestly only have been keeping up with the show to see if they'll actually fix the many problems it has. It's at an early enough point that it may be salvageable as just information they wanted to elaborate on later, but it's getting to the point where it'll be significantly obvious it wasn't originally planned for if it's not in the next run of episodes. They've had a movie, specials, and at least a whole season's worth of episodes, but haven't gotten around to over half the necessary world building for a story like this. It feels like somebody had an idea of where the show was supposed to go, but quit or got fired before they established the whole plot, and then they had to make plot filler while they made up something that meshed with the scraps of the old plot. Either that, or this is a draft being made into an actual show, and it's just a half-done concept being cleaned up around the edges, so hopefully no one notices. And believe me, I know what that looks like. That's all without mentioning how rushed the show feels. Honestly, we barely spend any time at all in any given location, and over half the show is just jumping around from place to place while also explaining nothing about the world other than everybody hates new things, grr. The locations are never consistent distances apart, and you'd think that they'd have learned this from My Little Pony Generation 4, given how that was a huge issue then, but I guess it's just another problem they're mirroring. I would like to clarify that many of these problems are also shared by Friendship is Magic, including the lack of story building early on and even some childish humor. The main difference here is that G5 was also trying to appeal to fans of G4 who have now grown up. G4 had grown up with the viewers establishing real plots and effectively spent runtime. While watching the webisodes, I could easily have skipped half of them and not missed much. The same information was just covered in less detail in the main show, Make Your Mark, and they found time to cover more side details. Speaking of the webisodes though, while watching the main show, it almost feels like the Tell Your Tale episodes never even happened. While good for viewers who only watch Make Your Mark, it leaves an emptiness that makes the main group not even feel like they know each other because most of their interactions were included in the webisodes. There are times where Zip and Pip barely seem like siblings. My point is that they don't include enough relaxed content in the main show or just day-to-day non-plot oriented events that you end up only having plot in Make Your Mark and only filler in Tell Your Tale. It's very unbalanced. Now, this isn't to say that they should make it so that you have to watch both series or keep up with both of them to understand what's going on. It's to say that they should have more good filler in Make Your Mark because there just isn't enough. It honestly seems like they've forgotten that filler is used for world building and not just, well, the characters are having fun over here. I'm really hoping that the writers learn how to progress a plot, but I'll leave this open-ended in the comments for those who want to add things they either like or dislike about the show. I also want to say that I don't hate the characters at all, and they do all have very fun personalities. I'm just sensing a lot of, well, hate is a strong word, but rather mistreatment of Izzy's character. Izzy is coded as having ADHD, whether people admit it or not, and she's often portrayed as annoying or a nuisance, which as a person with ADHD I find harmful as this is a reoccurring stereotype. Oh, I think that she is a perfectly fine character, and I think it is tolerable in the sense that her friends deal with it and appreciate her nonetheless, but it averages out to negative as they portray it as her friends suffer because of her habits or are putting up with it, like she's a burden to them. She's more than giving and cares deeply for them, so it honestly makes me feel like they don't deserve her friendship. These are of course my opinions, and I don't speak for the show or the company, blah blah blah, but I sincerely think it's still enjoyable as the media it is meant to be.